Welcome to another episode of Discograffiti's wildly in-depth Beach Boys series and Your Dreams Come True, where Brian Wilson freaks like you and me get our chance to delve deep into the barely believable history and prodigious discography of my favorite band of all time, and also coincidentally the best, along with a slew of over 50 top-shelf guests, ranging from musicians inspired by their work, family members, documentary directors, songwriting collaborators, Beach Boys authors, producers, touring band members, and for good measure, some of the Beach Boys themselves. I'm your host, Dave Gebrow, and special thanks goes out to co-producers Chuck Granata, Dennis Dykin, and Mark Freed, without whom this series would not have happened. And in this episode, we'll be turning our spray cans on the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. In this episode, we feature the next entry in the Chuck Granata Pet Sounds interview series. Chuck and legendary bassist Carol Kaye are close friends, so this exceptional interview goes incredibly deep in its search for the truth. Here's just a few of the many things that Carol discusses with Discograffiti in this podcast. The truth about Mike Love, the first time she crossed paths with Brian Wilson, working with Murray Wilson, and the 3 times that Carol had Brian and Marilyn over to her house. Here she is then, Carol Kaye.
I think a lot of what the family did was out of ignorance, not out of cruelty, like he thinks it was, But with Mike Love, I definitely think it's cruelty with him. I think the guy's sick,
Yeah, well, the Mike, I could see where Brian's brothers, or at least Carl, and Al Jardine really wanted to do an intervention for his best interest.
Yeah, they really did think. I think that they knew more than they thought, than they really did about Landy. And all that kind of stuff. But David, he might know a lot more than I know. I'm sure he does. But he out and out says that they deliberately did some really bad things to Brian, and he's really upset about it for years and years.
Well, here's my thing. I'm looking to focus on the music and how it was made, just like I did with the Sinatra book. I don't want to talk about, obviously Brian's breakdown and this whole changeover, where Brian began to follow what he really wanted to do creatively is an important part of the story.
Exactly.
But I don't want to make it sensationalized, and I don't want to get into the ground where we're talking about the lawsuits and the squabbles and this and that. I want it to be about the music,
Yeah.
I really want to avoid that.
I think that one issue alone will convince, between the book that you send him and the one issue about what you're aiming this book to do, will convince him that you're fine,
Okay.
Yeah, I think to stay away from that. Well, without getting into who's right. Did Mike Love really write this one line, or did Brian write that one line? You got to say.
Right.
That's so silly when you look at the overall beauty of the tunes and things like that. And Brian Wilson did have a habit of giving away things, and I think that with the lawsuit with Mike Love, he, rather than pursue it, because I know myself, just a little bit of suing that I did, it cost me $30,000 right there, and I couldn't afford that.
Right.
So he said, "Oh, give it to him." What the hell,
Right. I don't know. Do you know what the relationship between Brian and Mike is at this point?
I think that Brian kind of lives in the world like he wished that it was like it was back in the old days. He's not taking a realistic view of it, but I don't think that there's any kind of a relationship going on there at all. Mike Love kept growing. See, he was out there touring all the time, and he kept growing, whereas Brian just stopped. His growth as a human being just kind of stopped there for a while, and he's still kind of a kid in a way. That's why they say he's a kid. But he did grow, but it was through a lot of tough times. He didn't grow like Mike Love, and Mike Love got smarter and smarter and sharper how to be a bastard. See,
right.
So I think that Mike Love would love to do anything that would make Mike Love money. Brian has got people around him, his wife and friends like David and like that said, "No, stay away from this jerk." Whereas Brian, I think his true feelings are, oh, gee, why can't it be like it was in the old days? You know,
right,
kind of
right,
thing, you know?
exactly.
So I think that's where it stands. Whereas Brian will follow the advice of people around him, and I'm not saying that they're dictating to him what to do, but he does rely upon his wife and everybody else. You know, but Brian does not have a mean bone in his body. You know.
No, he just seems like a very sweet and generous person.
He's a sweet guy, and he does have to take some medications. So I think that kind of helps him get through a lot of these concerts too, because that's some tough stuff that he's going through, you know.
Right.
But I don't think there will ever be a meeting of the minds between those two.
It's really sad.
Well, you know, Mike Love, of all the guys, really turned out to be a bad guy, you know, so I don't think it's ever going to happen.
All right, that concludes your free sneak peek into today's Patreon episode. If you want to hear the rest of it, just visit patreon.com/discograffiti and either purchase this podcast by itself for $4, or better yet, subscribe at the major tier and get access to Discograffiti's 4 weekly episodes. That's Friday's free episode, the Sunday Discograffiti Soldiers of Sound episode, which showcases Patreon members and the Elephant Six world, your Monday bonus episode, and your Wednesday early release, ad-free, super extended director's cut of that Friday's show. Please keep in mind this is entirely how I support my wife and 6-year-old son, so don't risk feeling badly about yourself by not supporting Discograffiti. Become a member so you don't miss a single thing at patreon.com/discograffiti.